So I'm sure that a lot of you, like me, when we saw those leaked listings that we were getting a capsule lockdown, were super excited. Maybe it was going to be a new mold like Override. Then the rumors came down that it was going to be remolded from a Junkion. I was like, okay, I kind of get that. He did a little bit of modulating with his upgrades and the thievery and what have you. But this is now what we've got, and it's pretty well just axle grease. Is this a good or a bad thing? You be the judge. Okay, so first impressions, they seemingly have taken one of the most unique and memorable looking Decepticons and nerfed him down to like almost, McDonald's toy levels in terms of what you sort of expect from a lockdown, which is a little bit disappointing. I do understand that they can't always give everyone everything they want, but I probably would have waited until there was room in a release to do a proper, fully purpose, justified lockdown figure. Just, given how much of a fan favorite he is, this kind of reeks of some executive having a loose understanding of how thirsty lockdown fans are for a little more plastic representation and phoning it in. And it worked, right? I picked him up, I love Lockdown, and I got this figure even though, now that it's in hand, the hype has died down, and he's definitely been done better before. They have done him a little dirty. So I wouldn't be surprised if most people know Lockdown from the Bayverse films, where he showed up bounty hunting style to collect all the Autobots on the behalf of the Quintessons. But he has his origins in Transformers Animated, where he served a similar role as a bounty hunter, showing up to give Ratchet some PTSD flashbacks to when he got jacked for his upgrades. He showed up a few more times, one time most notably hooking up with Prowl and getting Prowl hooked on upgrades, and that's where you get that awesome samurai looking Prowl from. But that alliance was short-lived, as he soon found out that Lockdown was actually responsible for killing his master, which, needless to say, culminated in a Cyber Ninja revenge arc, which was very cool. He then ended up getting a Movieverse figure to extend the line and pack out the waves. That version of Lockdown didn't appear in fiction until the IDW comics, where he showed up with a bunch of rogue Decepticons to wreak havoc on the Lost Light crew. And that's Lockdown in a nutshell. There are parts of him, like his legs, that feel super Lockdown-esque, and like the black's a really nice black. His chest, even with the two greens, is sitting a little flat to me. So they've gone for the Movieverse release version with the head sculpt, which I understand. It looks really cool. It's easier to adapt than Animated was. But when you're going for a G1ification of things, giving him that loose change mustache is an interesting choice. I'm not getting a lot of personality out of this head sculpt. Articulation, very much the same as his mold mates. Arms go round, bicep swivel, hingy elbow, wrist articulation. Shoulders also bend up to crush his own head. Waist swivel. Molded hip skirts. I love it. No thigh swivel, but you get, knee swivel from the pop apart kind of gimmick. Quite good ankles from transformation, with a good tilt. So, nothing bad, but pretty standard stuff at this point. Where he becomes a little more fun is all these accessories. Cue the montage. That's his official loadout, which I gotta admit doesn't quite do it for me. There is also a fan transformation that mixes things up a little bit, which I like more and will be doing for the rest of the video. So something that I have seen quite a few people do is take these extra pieces and actually use them as leg extenders to give him his, his chickeny legs. Then you can take that engine block piece, put it on his wrist as an approximation of, Ratchet's null ray thing. Then I guess you kind of just got to put the hook in his hand. But for my taste, at least now he's got a little bit of Lockdown's lank. I think this does so much for this figure. So whilst this leg modification does help him out a little bit, as we come to comparison time, this is where he, really comes up short. Pun intended. So first let's start with the OG animated Lockdown. How hard is it to believe that these guys are the same price point? Like, admittedly, this Lockdown would have to be one of the biggest deluxes ever made, and just such an incredible feat that they managed to squeeze him in for this price point. God, that's a good figure. Even with his leg extenders, he's looking him dead in the belly button. And then of course we've got the goated Mech Tech, Mech Alive, Real Feel, Reveal the Shield, whatever he was, this Lockdown. So whilst this guy's articulation is a little bit janky in places, he's just so cool. He's got like, you know, little hydraulics on his hook. Gotta love that. And he's got that super articulated noggin. Ah, love it. And, you know, full Ger Walker. Again, real sign of the times, but both of these guys are deluxe figures. For the times they are changing. So if we go ahead and get all three of these bad boys into frame, you can really see where the new one is an amalgamation of these previous two. You got the head carried through from the movie one. The chest design is much more like his animated compatriot. Same with the legs. His thighs are taken from animated. However, his shins are taken from this version. The engine block is a little bit more movie-verse than it is animated. Like, you can see it. Attention to detail. Like, love and care went into this. I just wish that the design team had been allowed to go for a whole new mold and sculpt. Because of the three, even with that sort of, you know, customized leg configuration, he is definitely the weakest. There's no real way around that. Given that there's absolutely nothing new about this transformation, and it's essentially the third time we've seen it, I'm just going to hustle through it. But I will say he is now a parts former if you do this mod. Whereas normally, he doesn't have to parts form even though he's a weaponizer, armorizer, fall apart friend. So if we're judging this car off its own merits, it's a cool looking Mad Max-esque, like, you know, last of the V8 Interceptors kind of car. I don't hate it, right? All these little apps here are super appreciated. The silver spike highlights, the red looks good, the green stripes are nice carried through. I like the way, I don't know, whatever those are, fuel tanks, that sits. So once again, despite being a decent enough figure in its own right, as soon as you get to comparisons, he comes up short. He just doesn't quite embody the slickness that you expect from Lockdown. Like, Lockdown has, you know, a janky Franken element to him, but there's finesse and class that you just don't quite get from this, you know, junky on reuse. You know what I mean? Where's the Corvette-esque wave as you come down to that powerful hood? So look, whilst it is great to take another trip out in the plastic with Lockdown, if you are able to get either of the other two existing versions, I would hunt one of those down. But given that they're likely to be a bit more effort and quite a bit more expensive than getting this one, if you don't have a Lockdown, it's still pretty cool. Especially if you're locked in on that whole junkie on play pattern of pulling them apart and swapping bits, which is very true to the nature of Lockdown. So whilst he's definitely not as good as his previous iterations, it is great that they are trying to give us those characters that they know the fandom love. I do hope that this doesn't put him out of the running of getting his own fully purposed mold in the near future. We can but wait and wonder. And so that's a wrap. Be sure to let me know what you thought in the comments. Let's get into it. Are you going to get this Lockdown? Do you have the other Lockdowns? Is this a waste of a potential Lockdown? I want to know. So be sure to hit me up in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, way to go, you little legend. And until the next one, let's get nerdy with it. Catch!